Hello, I'm Howard Stableford, and this week on Concept Cars, we're taking an overview. Quite a big overview, actually. This is our planet, and when the day comes when there isn't enough oil left, how are we all going to continue enjoying burning the tarmac in our V12s then? Plus, before that happens, will we ever improve motoring's bad image of polluting the air with our foul exhausts? It's obvious that in order to continue enjoying the freedom of the motor car, plus, arguably more importantly, preserving our planet for future generations, we've got to find other ways to fuel our cars.
There are several problems. One is greenhouse effect, so producing carbon dioxide from combustion of fossil fuels. The other problem is that, for instance, with the conventional oil, we have already used about half of it, so at some time in the future there will be a shortage in fossil energy, and it's now time to think about alternatives.
But what's wrong with good old gasoline? Why not just make petrol cars more efficient? Well, car manufacturers have been doing this for ages, but in the past, fuel economy wasn't exactly a strong selling point. Back in the 1960s, Honda, for example, worked hard on the CVCC system, which created concept cars that used far less fuel. But the average American driver didn't give a monkeys. In America, fuel was cheaper than water, and most Texans had an oil well in their back garden anyway. But when the fuel crisis of the 1970s changed all that, and the Honda Civic CVC became a national hero, it gave a kickstart to the demand for small cars in the States. More recently, a big breakthrough in fuel efficiency came when Mitsubishi launched their GDI, or Gasoline Direct Injection range of engines. They promised that GDI power plants would be 20% more fuel efficient, with 10% more power, and with 20% less CO2 emissions. So here's the science bit. How do they do that?
A GDI engine is the engine which supplies the fuel directly into the cylinder, just like the diesel engine. And because of that, GDI can achieve better fuel economy and better performance at the same time.
So basically, instead of squirting petrol into the inlet valves as we did in the old days, they pumped fuel directly into the cylinder, where it has a chance to vaporize before being ignited. The idea was to use as many fuel molecules as possible, as efficiently as possible.
Benefits of GDI engines are lower fuel consumption and less CO2 emission. And also at the same time, it achieves more power and torque for farm to drive, and it's a good feature for customers also.
The new engines had many other optimizations as well, like using curved top pistons. But although the ideas in theory were fine, the great car buying public weren't going to buy the idea of this concept engine until they saw proof. So Mitsubishi set up a demonstration test drive, just a little matter of about 6,500 kilometers across Europe. Starting in Finland, and with great ceremony, the intrepid independent researchers set off on a marathon trek in their Mitsubishi Charisma, with one of the new GDI engines installed. Would it really deliver what was promised? So from Finland, it's on and off the ferry towards Copenhagen in Denmark. And it's time for a refuel stop, but already the figures look promising. Less cash spent on fuel, you see, means more on crisps and chocolates, doesn't it? And these guys will need creature comforts for this enormous road trip. It's on the road to the Netherlands, another fuel stop, a careful check of the figures, and it's off again. There's no time to stop and enjoy the scenery, as it's onwards and upwards through Belgium, Germany, Austria and Italy. No time to sunbathe on one of Italy's beaches, as it's back through France, and then to Spain and Madrid. I wonder what the guys found to talk about during this trip. Oh, I do hope they got on. So here we are in Lisbon, Portugal, and the finish line, and the guys have covered 6,429 kilometres. After 11 days of this very public test of GDI technology, the figures do stack up. The GDI does make more of standard everyday gasoline or petrol.
GDI is quite versatile and has good potential for further application to either smaller or larger engines. And I believe this is a new power plant for the 21st century.
GDI engines can now be found in Volvos as well as Mitsubishis, and the whole project has been a success. But for many years, the holy grail of fuel economy in the 1990s was the 3-litre car. We're not talking here about the capacity of the engine, but about a car capable of doing 100 kilometres on just 3 litres of fuel. Volkswagen actually achieved the 3-litre car in 1998, a real breakthrough when it was unveiled at the Paris show. I actually drove the car myself while I was there, and I was very impressed. While most modern cars sip fuel, this merely sniffs it. This champion fuel saver is also 150 kilograms lighter than a normal Lupo. The vehicle body is made of completely galvanized sheet steel. Aluminium was used both for the bonnet and for the doors. In addition, the tailgate has aluminium on the outside and magnesium on the inside. Even the heat-absorbing glass is lighter. The engine is a brand new 3-cylinder turbo diesel with 1.2 litre cubic capacity, and even though the 61 brake horsepower sounds puny, it's perfectly okay for such a small, light car.
What we need is not a revolution stepping from today's powertrain systems to a hydrogen fuel cell car. We need an evolution. And the 3-litre Lupo is one of the first steps of such an evolution. It's a big improvement in the powertrain technology. It's what we call an intelligent powertrain, which steps the gears as it is best for fuel consumption, and which has a big, really improved engine inside.
So, once the 100 kilometre on 3 litres of fuel barrier had been broken, what was the next hurdle to jump? While others were still trying to aim towards a 2-litre car, VW went one better and had a great publicity stunt to announce it to the world. Now, recognise this guy? No, it's not Victor Meldrew, but the outgoing boss of Volkswagen, Dr. Ferdinand Piëch. On his last day at work, he didn't just get drunk and snog his secretary like the rest of us might do. No, he shocked the world by going home in a new concept car designed to go 100 kilometres on just 1 litre of fuel. This so-called 1-litre car was to go from VW's base at Wolfsburg to Hanover with Dr. Piëch at the wheel. Now obviously he wasn't going to burn tarmac on the Autobahn. He was going to tootle along very carefully to conserve fuel, while the huge convoy behind him kept out interference from any German Junge racers. Hey, love the personalised plates! Remember, 1 litre is not the capacity of the engine, but that the economy is designed to let it go 100 kilometres on 1 litre of fuel. Plenty of Ausfahrts to go past yet. Shame about the rain, isn't it? Well, Hanover's still 39 kilometres to go. I wonder how the old fella's doing. What a thing to be doing on your last day as boss of Volkswagen. Here's a smile. That's better. I wonder what music he's listening to for this world record attempt. So let's continue up the Autobahn, sipping that fuel. Okay, let's stop at a Rostov, literally a rest farm, like our motorway services. Only here, I bet they don't serve curled sauerkraut or out-of-date Wurst. How's he getting on? Looks in good spirits. A little bit of checking and double-checking. A journalist asks if the doctor has any secret stash of fuel. Haha, very witty. Now, if they could design a car to run off water, that would be a winner, as long as it's not at the prices of mineral water. Okay, so off we go again. Final stop, Hamburg city centre. Die Ankunft, the arrival, with 257 kilometres on the clock. But how much fuel has he used? So let's top up his tank to see how much he's burnt. Then the calculations can commence. Nice sample, sir. You must be very proud. The figures on the screen converted to imperial. 285 miles per gallon. Wow! So here's the doctor plus the new boss, Herr Piëch, to announce to the press. Sorted, gentlemen. The Volkswagen 1-litre car is an astonishing achievement, but we're still talking about using normal, old-fashioned, refined oil fuel. So what can be done for the long-term future? That's all for part 1, but here's a glimpse of some of the concept cars we'll be featuring in part 2. Back in the early 1900s, it seemed as though steam-powered cars would overtake petrol engines as the most popular form of motoring. Now, you don't need to be a genius to realise that petrol engines won the day, but for some, steam is still where it's at. Bill Rich is one such enthusiast, and he kindly showed Concept Cars his beloved Stanley Steamer. Definitely hot property. Obviously, Bill loves his steamer, but why was it the top power source back in the early 1900s?
The steam was dominant at the turn of the century because it was a known technology. It was used in factories and power generation and steam trains and traction engines. There was a lot of motive power being used in steam or by steam, and it was only natural that cars would take that route. And they were dominant, the cars were dominant so far as they were much faster and quieter than early internal combustion engine cars. And they had formidable acceleration, very good hill climbing possibilities. And in fact, I believe in America and in this country, they were banned from hill climbing because nobody could beat them. They were just absolutely incredible. And as you probably know, the land speed record was taken by Stanley in '06 at 127 miles an hour, and that record stood for about 4 years before it was taken or beaten by an internal combustion engine car. So it was very dominant.
Certainly a lovely work of art, but what were the pros and cons of a steam-powered vehicle?
The advantages versus disadvantages of steam cars are the advantages, I would say, are that they're almost totally silent, terrific acceleration, very environmentally friendly. Disadvantages, very high maintenance, not terribly good fuel consumption, about 10 miles to the gallon, and you're up against the age-old problem with steam, which is getting the thermal efficiency from the fuel into the water. You have to have a fire which has got to generate heat that's got to pass through a steel wall into the pressure container that has the water where the pressure is being generated, and you cannot get a terribly efficient flow of heat through that structure, and this really is what limits the thermal output of these steam cars.
I'm not convinced. I would swap it for the Beamer, but if I did, what would it be like to own the Stanley?
My ownership experience of a steam car has been very up and down. When I first got it, it was a mechanical disaster, and ended up rebuilding it mechanically. And it's now going probably as well as it has ever been since it left the factory. And absolute joy to drive, great fun to have and to go about, and it's always a big talking point and a thing of interest. You only have to park anywhere and you have a crowd around you in minutes. It doesn't matter where you go. They do create a lot of interest, and it is just a wonderful form of transport, and everybody should have one, in my opinion.
Running cars on methane or natural gas isn't new, and was even used during the Second World War. Now, with gas compression technologies, you can shove a load into a decent-sized tank, rather than have a large marquee stuck on your roof. These days, it's called CNG, or compressed natural gas. Environmentalists loved it when the car companies started experimenting with methane. The Honda Civic's GX, for example, was estimated to give out 98% fewer hydrocarbons and 26% less carbon dioxide than a petrol version. You can convert virtually any car to gas, and here's a tank installed in a Vauxhall Astra. Usually you can still keep your normal petrol tank and switch over to gas as and when. BMW did a load of tests in Germany using natural gas or aired gas, and here we see a Beamer being filled up at a Munich aired gas station. Looks clean and high-tech, but unfortunately CNG isn't great on vehicle range, and in the UK it's hard to find places where you can fill up. unlike LPG or liquid petroleum gas. With hundreds of LPG refuelling sites around the UK, and with tempting cash savings to be made on running costs thanks to various government initiatives, it seems on the surface a no-brainer to convert your car. But do you really want a huge tank taking up valuable space in your car like this? It's true you can now get tanks that take the place of your spare tyre, but spare tyres are kind of useful as well, aren't they? Plus, many people are wary of safety issues with gas. For example, Eurotunnel tell us that they still won't allow LPG vehicles to go through their Channel Tunnel, so they must be pretty concerned. Plus, you may save cash now, but let's assume most of the UK's motorists go to gas. Do you really think the government will keep the tax low on this fuel then? So, what other forms of energy can we use? Surely electric cars are the way of the future. There have been so many different electric concept cars over the years, and in theory the idea is sound. Or not sound actually, as these creatures are very quiet indeed. Also, electric cars are very clean, so they're good to the environment. Ah, you say, but surely all the nasty, smelly pollution is at the electric power station end, where they make the blessed stuff. Well, that's not quite true. It's actually easier to control those nasty emissions at the power station than on millions of cars running around. And remember that power stations aren't the only way to create electric power. Electricity can be created by wave power, or by using solar cells, using a wind farm, or even hydroelectric power. What a lovely green solution. However, as we've seen in previous shows, electric cars are still in their technological infancy. The General Motors EV1 was a brave foray into a new market, but there wasn't exactly a mad rush to buy electric technology.
But the big problem with all electric cars is still the battery, and that's still today the same. So we have to think how to recharge those batteries to make them smaller.
The problem with these lecky beasts is that even though you can refuel at home or anywhere there's a socket, you can't refuel fast. For long journeys, you'd have to work out if you'd have enough juice to get back. An overnight charge may also leave your car prone to vandalism with all those wires trailing around. So that's why manufacturers like Honda and Toyota have gone the compromise route to get the best from both worlds. The Honda Insight concept was created with advanced lightweight materials, a new powertrain, and 2 engines, one petrol and one electric. The idea is that you don't need a huge petrol engine when an electric one can help out just when it's needed. The Toyota Prius uses a similar system of using 2 engines. On the dashboard you can see if your car is using or storing electricity. So it's not exactly carefree motoring as you continuously eye up the power meter nervously, but you'll be able to sail past more fuel stations than you'd need to stop at. The hybrid cars like the Insight and Prius are doing a great job until the next big breakthrough. But maybe that breakthrough is already here. What if we used hydrogen as fuel and combined it with oxygen from the air? This would produce electrical energy to run a motor, plus the only byproduct would be water. What a great idea! It's called a fuel cell. Plus there'll be no battery to run down, as the fuel cell will keep on pumping out the lecky as long as hydrogen and oxygen are still supplied to it. This was considered such a huge idea that arch rivals Ford and Daimler-Benz actually got together to sign a memorandum of understanding to join forces to develop fuel cell technology. The big cheeses got together to sign the document and invited the press to watch.
We've entered into this agreement with Ballard and Daimler-Benz because the experience and the technology of the 3 companies in fuel cell development is going to be very complementary. We have believed in Ford for many years that fuel cells is one of the most promising technologies for the 21st century.
But hang on, you're saying, these fuel cells sound great, but where are we going to get all this hydrogen from? And how safe would it be to store the stuff at hydrogen filling stations and in our cars? You know, Hindenburg disaster and all that?
Hydrogen does not only have nice sides like clean use. Its problem is that ambient conditions, it's a very light gas, so storage of hydrogen is one of the problems. at the moment.
Well, risk like this is the last thing we need with a future car power system. So, if hydrogen-powered fuel cells are such a good idea, how can the hydrogen storage and distribution problem be solved? Well, Daimler Chrysler may have cracked it. In a world first, they've developed a fuel cell vehicle with an on-board facility for actually generating its own hydrogen. This revolutionary new vehicle, which is based on the Mercedes-Benz A-Class, is known as Nicar 3, and unlike its predecessors, fills up with methanol, which is fairly easy to make and safe to store. So, is it curtains for petrol cars? Well, according to people like top British designer Peter Stevens, there's plenty of life in the old dog yet.
Do you know, the simple truth at the moment is that if you've got a gallon can of petrol, the efficiency of storing that much energy in that tiny space is way ahead of any of these other potential things, you know. There are some power sources which people talk of, then you hear they need to run at 700 degrees centigrade, you know. How we could cope with a product liability situation where we've got a kind of furnace in the car that's making the power, you know, is, I think, not solved at all at the moment. You know, that's for sure. Petrol, even though it's controversial and kind of grim and ecologically unsound, is really startlingly efficient. But we will find other things which are good, and we don't know what they are at the moment, I think.
That's all for this week, but in the last of the series we'll have a look ahead to motoring of the future, and we'll round up a whole car park full of fascinating concepts that we just haven't managed to pack into previous episodes. Plus, there's my personal top 10 daffiest concept cars. See you then.